Hello, welcome back to Animated Literacy. This is lesson number 68 from the Story Song and Action book. In this lesson, we're going to be learning about a hare named Abe and how he likes to skate around the bay. Before we do that, we'll do some of our review. In our last lesson, we learned about Grouchy Owl and Brown Mouse and how Brown Mouse was being chased around her townhouse by Grouchy Owl, and she escaped through a tiny door as he was coming down too fast, and he couldn't stop in time, and so he hit the door with his head, grabbed his head, and said, "Ow!" And so our sound from last time was what? Ow! And then in our last lesson, we drew some pictures to help us remember that sound and how to spell it. So we drew a picture of an owl, and another word for grouchy is crabby, and so I used the adjective crabby to describe my owl, and I put that crabby owl hoots. Now remember, we can get a lot of these words by looking at the charts that we can make up from the books that we read of all the different adjectives and verbs that we can do. And this was a Skybrary one called Bark Park. That's a good one for getting lots of words from. Then we drew a picture of a house, and this house is small, so I labeled it a cozy house that protects. So what does it mean to protect? Keeps you safe from the rain and from wild animals if you happen to live where you have wild animals and things. Then I drew a picture of a cow, and I labeled my cow an old milk cow. So old was an adjective describing cow, milk described the cow for the kind of cow, and the milk cow squirts. Then I put down here that the milk cow squirts milk. So now milk was used as an adjective here to tell us what kind of cow it is, and it's used as a noun down here to tell us what it's squirting. Then we drew a picture of a mouse, and I labeled my mouse a squeaky mouse that scurries. What does it mean to scurry? It means to go really fast. So you can get a lot of these interesting words like scurry by making charts of the books that we read. And then we drew a picture of a hound dog, and a hound dog howls. So I said my loud hound howls. And all three of those words have our ow sound in them. Then we didn't draw a picture of a clown, but you can draw a picture on your own, either completely by yourself, or if you've made up a drawing book like the one I've been showing you. Clown is one of the words that you can find in the back of the book, and it'll give you steps for drawing a clown, but you don't have to use those steps. You can draw a clown any way you want, and then go ahead and label that on your own. So then after we did our drawing and our labeling, we put it into a song to sing. And so here we used the song, The Spider on the Floor, but changed it to an owl. So if you have this page with you, you can take your finger and you can track it with me while we sing our verse that we made up. Oh, there's an owl by the house, by the house. There's an owl by the house, by the house. There's an owl by the house, and he's chasing a mouse. There's an owl by the house, by the house. And so then I drew the owl and the house and the mouse and labeled those. So this time I labeled my owl a grouchy owl who chases a little mouse or a little house that protects, and a brown mouse that runs. So you can learn a lot of words and have a lot of fun with your drawing and labeling there. Now my goal is that my children, or in my class, or if you're a parent doing this, that you can at first have the children copy you while you're doing your labeling, but then eventually you want them doing their labeling on their own. So these are some pages that happened late in my kindergarten classroom after I had been doing a lot of modeling and the children had been doing a lot of copying. And so this child drew a picture by themselves of what they called a cool kid. So they used the word cool to describe their kid. And their cool kid had a big helmet and a little heart a little smile, a colorful t-shirt, wheels on their skateboard, a peach hand, and she wrote up on top, "This is me riding on a skateboard." So they did that all by themselves, and that's my goal, is that all of the students can get to where they can do these on their own. And I've shown you this one before. This is another of my favorite labeling pages that the kids did. And this child drew a funny thing, and her funny thing has pretty hair, has looking eyes, an eating mouth, a funny nose, and she writes this sentence, "I see a funny thing, can you? Yes." So you can do all of that labeling, bring in your adjectives, and on those there weren't verbs, but you can bring in verbs. Now what I found in my classroom is that a lot of the kids were having a difficult time jumping from copying me to doing it by themselves. So I made up some pages that I put in both the beginning workbook and the advanced workbook. And this is an example where I set up the page. Here's a mom, and up in this corner are the nouns that you can put inside circles to label the mom and the parts of the mom. And then I took one of the books that I'd read and supplied the adjectives from that book over here. And the children could either use the adjectives from the box up here, or they could use their own adjectives. So this child has a nice mom with blue eye, red dress, black button, brown hair, a short neck, a pretty smile, and a short leg. And then on these pages, I put a sentence here. My sentence is, "This mom looks pretty with her warm smile and her bright dress." And I told the kids, if you want to copy my sentence, that's fine. But by this time, they're tired of copying. It's not as much fun to copy as it is to do it on their own. So the children all wrote their own sentences, and this child wrote, "I have a mommy and I like her." Some of the pages use adjectives, and this is one that uses adjectives with the clown. And this child wrote down on the bottom, "A silly clown is going to play with a big ball." Then on other pages, I had them use verbs, and I put verbs up in the box here. So on this child's page, she has the suds can splash, the ear can hear, the cub can chortle. Now where does she get a word like chortle? From the books that we read, and to chortle means to laugh. The sub can float, the kid can read, the tub can sink, the nose can smell, and the fur can cuddle. Then down at the bottom, the child writes, "This kid reads while the tub sinks. The cub chortles while he reads." So what kind of book do you think that child is reading? They're reading a book that is funny. So their character is chortling. Today we're going to be doing several different topics. One of our first topics is going to be a hare. And here's a picture of a hare. Now a lot of people confuse hares with rabbits because they look a lot alike, but in fact they're completely different animals. So some of the differences between a hare and a rabbit are, hares tend to be bigger, their ears tend to be longer, hares make their home in the grass on top of the ground, and most rabbits live under the ground. And that fits where if there's an animal that is a danger to them, the hare likes to run away because it's bigger and stronger and faster than the rabbit, and the rabbit likes to go in its hole and hide. When a rabbit is born down in its hole, it's hairless. It doesn't have any fur, and so it has to have a lot of help from its mom to protect it. When a hare is born, it already has hair, and it's pretty good at taking care of itself. So these are quite different animals, even though they look a lot alike. Two other animals that are frequently confused are turtles and tortoises. And a big difference between a turtle and a tortoise is that a tortoise lives on the land, and a turtle spends most of its time in the water. So those are two very different animals that look a lot alike. So if we take a look at some books now that you can learn some more information and enjoy reading about our hares and tortoises. This is a favorite one called The Tortoise and the Hare, and this version is from Janet Stevens, and it is available in your Skybrary app. And this is one about racing, and that's going to be another topic that we're going to be exploring, so you can talk about a race you've been in or a race that you've gone to watch. Here's another one about hares. Now this one is called, this is a Skybrary book, and it's called Jeremy Jackrabbit's Jumping Journey. And a jackrabbit is actually not a rabbit. A jackrabbit is a hare. So when you read that story, you'll be reading about a hare, not a rabbit. And this is another one, Late Nate in a Race, and that's also a Skybrary book. So you can read another book about hares and rabbits and racing. This is a favorite song of mine called Down by the Bay, and you might already know this song. This is Raffi's version of it, but this is an old song that many people have recorded, and Raffi has recorded it and put it into a book. And we're going to be exploring it more when we do our drawing and labeling. And it starts out like this. Down by the bay, where the watermelons grow, back to my home I dare not go, for if I do, my mother will say, did you ever see a goose kissing a moose down by the bay? And so it has a lot of really fun rhymes in it. This is a fun story because we're going to be talking about a hare who likes to race. And this is a story about bunnies and their sports. And these bunnies play lots of different sports that you can talk about. This page says, every morning when bunnies wake up from a good night's rest, they brush their teeth, eat their breakfast, and warm up. So they warm up before doing their sports. Then it's time for bunnies and their sports. And one of the sports that the bunnies play in this book is roller skating. And so here's a bunny roller skating. And in our story today, we're going to have a hare that roller skates. The story I mentioned that's also on Skybrary, I have the book from here, and it's called The Tortoise and the Hare. And this is a story about a very fast hare who could beat nearly anyone in a race, and about a tortoise who was extremely slow. And so the hare was always teasing the tortoise about being so slow. So finally the hare challenges the tortoise to a race. And everybody thinks, who's going to win? Of course the hare is going to win. He's much faster than the tortoise. But as he's racing, he stops at Bear's house to get a drink. And Tortoise catches up with him. Then he runs past Tortoise. Then he stops at Mouse's house to get a snack. And once more the tortoise passes him. Then he stops to take a nap, and the tortoise passes him. And all of a sudden he hears this cheering, and he realizes that the tortoise is just about to win the race. And that's exactly what happens. Because slow and steady wins the race, the tortoise crosses the finish line first and beats the hare in a race. So it's important to know that story as we get into our story. So now, I'm going to tell you about Abe, the gray hare. And here's Abe, and you can see he has really long ears, and hares have longer ears than a rabbit. And Abe loves to race. So he races everywhere that he goes. And in fact, Abe is the hare that was in our story about the tortoise and the hare. But after Abe was so embarrassed by losing that race to the tortoise, he never stopped during a race again. And so he won all his races. And at first animals were happy to race with him. But because he kept winning all the races, it stopped being fun. And Abe reached a point where no one would race him. And he became very sad without somebody to race. So he decided, I need to find a way to race where I'm not winning all of the races. So he thought about some different ways that he could race. One way was he thought, well, I can get into a car and I can race cars. But then when he started the car, it was really loud and it made his great big ears hurt. So he decided, no, racing cars isn't for me. So then he thought, well, I could race airplanes. But then he thought about airplanes are where? Way up in the sky. And he was afraid of heights. So no airplane racing for Abe. Then he lived near the bay. So he thought, I can race on surfboards or paddle boards, or I could swim in the bay and race. But then he thought some more and thought, I don't know how to swim and I'm kind of afraid of the water. So he decided not to do that. Well, then one day he was out at the bay and he heard this gentle click, clack, click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. And this girl went right by him and he looked to see how it was that she was going so easily and making that click clack sound. Well, what he discovered was the little girl was wearing a pair of skates. So he decided, well, skates are going to be the way that I'm going to race. So he got a pair of skates, but each time he tried to skate at first, he fell down and he skinned his knees and he hurt his hands. But he kept going and he kept practicing and practicing and practicing till he got better and better at skating. Then once he got better at skating, he went up to the little girl and he said, "Hey, do you want to race?" And she said, "Sure." And so Abe went to race with the little girl named Kate. And here's Abe and Kate racing around the bay. Well, in the very first race, Kate won the race. And they had several races after that, and sometimes Kate won, sometimes Abe won, but he decided winning didn't really matter because he was already a winner. Because the thing he really wanted was a friend to race with. And he and Kate became very close friends. And now whenever he wants to race, he challenges Kate to a race on skates, and they go racing around the bay. And it really doesn't matter who the winner is. So whenever you see our picture of Abe at the bay, I want you to think about racing skates, and I want you to pretend like you are on a skate, and the skate has wheels like this. So take your hand and make a circle. Put yourself on top of that circle, so here you are. Pretend like you're up the hill, and as you go skating down the hill, make this sound. Go, "Hey!" as you're going down the hill. So once more, make your circle, put yourself on top, and go, "Hey!" Now let's figure out if Abe's sound is a vowel or a consonant. So if it stands alone like the cheese, it's what? A vowel. But if it needs a partner like ing and ong, it's a consonant. So let's put it into Are You Sleeping and check it out. So everybody warm up your muscles. Show me your skate. Are you skating? Are you skating? Abe the hare, Abe the hare. Abe's bells are saying, Abe's bells are saying, A, 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 A. So did we put a partner with it? Nope, it's like the cheese. So what is it? Vowel sound. So now let's learn Abe's song. So warm your muscles up again. Now first we're going to make a bay. Now a bay is where there's water that is fed from something else. And in San Diego we have several bays, and there are places that connect them to the ocean. So you need to make a circle like this for your bay, but leave an opening so the water can go in and out of the bay. So here's my bay, and sing this back to me. To the bay, to the bay. Now we're going to put Abe on his skate. Abe will skate, Abe will skate. Now we're going to show him waking up and getting ready to go skating. Abe will wake and not be late. Abe will wake and not be late. Now we're going to listen to the click-clack of the skates. Hear the click-clack of his skates. Hear the click-clack of his skates. Now show me rolling. Rolling to the bay. Rolling to the bay. This gray hair. Now for the hair, well, let's put up some big bunny ears like this. This gray hair will skate today. Will skate today. Now let's see the different ways that we can spell Abe's sound. So he can spell it with an A and an E. He can spell it with an A and an I. Or he can spell it with an AY. So he has 3 different ways to spell his name. So sing this back to me. First we'll make an A. So we'll make our angle line like this and cross it this way. Then we can make an E with our 3 fingers sticking out like this, okay? A and E spell long A. A and E spell long A. They spell A. They spell A in Abe and skate. They spell A in Abe and skate. Now we need an A and an I, so here's my stick and my dot. And AI spells A. And now put in Abe's cottontail, in Abe's cottontail. Now we need an A and a Y. A, Y, A, Y. A-Y spells long A in bay. A-Y spells long A in bay. Now let's do that once more, and then we'll do it with our recording. Ready? Show me your bay again to start out. To the bay, Abe will skate. Abe will wake and not be late. Hear the click-clack of his skates rolling to the bay. This gray hare will skate today. A and E spell long A, spell long A. They spell A in Abe and skate. They spell A in Abe and skate. And AI spells A. And AI spells A in Abe's cottontail. In Abe's cottontail. AY spells long A in bay. AY spells long A in bay. Okay, well, let's see if you can do the gesturing and sing along with the song while I point to the words now. Ready?
To the bay, Abe will skate. Abe will wake and not be late. Hear the click-clack of his skates rolling to the bay. This gray hare will skate today.
Make your letters.
A and E spell long A. They spell A in Abe and skate. And AI spells A in Abe's cottontail. AY spells long A in bay.
Okay, so now when you get back to your seat and you have your paper, you can rainbow write over Abe's letter pattern. So we have A blank E, AI, and AY. So then you can see how you can put those into a picture or a story about yourself. So you might like to think of some kind of sport that you like to do. And we talked about several different kinds of sports, and his sports were either racing on his feet or racing with roller skates. You can talk about what you know about bunny rabbits or hares, and maybe you have a rabbit for a pet, but you wouldn't have a hare for a pet because hares are wild animals. They have not been domesticated. So people don't keep hares for pets, but many people do keep rabbits. If you've been to the bay, you could talk about water sports. Maybe you like to sail at the bay. Maybe you like to make sandcastles. Maybe you like to swim at the bay, so you can talk about that. You could talk about a race that you've been in and what it feels like when you win and what it feels like when you lose. And you can talk about what you can do to make a new friend. So draw a picture and either write something about your picture on the back or have your teacher or your parent help you write it. And then next time we'll take a look at some words that we can draw and label using Abe's sound. So I hope to see you then. Thank you for joining me.